Well, today it's an absolute pleasure to have the chance to interview Pat Rush. Um, I don't know that Pat would be massively insulted if I said that Pat is one of the more mature members of our congregation, a group of people who are absolutely vital to us and play such a key role in, I guess, in making the church what it is, really. And we appreciate them so much in so many different ways. Pat, it's great to be able to spend a little time with you this afternoon just to get to know you and let
Thank
people
you.
get to know you a little bit more. Introduce yourself. Just tell people the bare bones about who you are.
Bare bones. Well, I was born in 1937, just before the war started. We were bombed out of our house on Slater Street and moved to a little place called Cornholme, just the other side of Todmorden. We had family links with some people there. My mother and my sister and myself lived there. My father commuted. He was he was a fireman with the NHS. Sorry, not NHS, NFS, and he worked on the docks,
Okay.
which was the worst place to be
Yeah.
on there. But he came home every weekend, and we lived very happily there until about 1943. Came back home to Salford because my mother was expecting my younger sister, and we lived on Sutton Flats, which sadly are no longer there. We great place for children to be brought up on. Loads of children on the block with you, loads of games we could play, no traffic, no cars, loads of playgrounds, and it was just great. So I went to St James's Roman Catholic primary school, went on to Adelphi House Grammar School, the best one going, actually. And then left there, went to work for the ICI in the labs. Quite enjoyed that. Played a lot of netball and tennis. I was always keen on sport. And met my husband Jack through playing for De La Salle Old Boys Tennis Club.
Okay.
So that's how I met Jack. And he was quite adventurous, and he said he'd like to go to New Zealand. So, okay, I went with him, of course. But we couldn't go married because you had to be sponsored to go married. You had to have somebody there who would give you a home to live in when you got there. So we went singly. 10 days after we landed, we were married. And I had a job in a little lab there. Jack had his work as a carpenter. And so started our life in New Zealand. I had Anne, my first child, the next year, then followed by Jonathan. Bought a piece of land to build a house. Jack did the plans. He was very good at anything like that. Got a grant from the government. And then one morning when we were clearing the land, Jack said, you know, if we build this house, you'll never go home. So that took me back a bit, and I thought, has he been thinking about that? To be honest, I hadn't been. But I said, oh, okay, then we'll go home. So we...
So how long were you in New Zealand for?
Nearly 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we came back home with Anne, and Jonathan was a year old when we travelled by boat. That was a pretty horrendous journey, I have to say, coming back with two small children, and got into the Mediterranean, some terrible storm, backwash from the Bay of Biscay. Everybody sick. I was sick and sick. and sick. Everybody got better. I didn't get better.
Oh, really?
And I realised then that I was pregnant again. So met my mother and father at Southampton. My father burst into tears. He thought, this poor girl has been living in New Zealand and she's a wreck. But that was what it was. So there we go. The day after we landed, Jack came out and bought the house that I'm in now.
Right. So
I didn't see it. I didn't see it at all. It was completely derelict, hadn't been lived in for several years. We had nothing but a cooker, 2 cots, a bed, 2 stools, and a folding down table. And that's how we started.
brilliant. What a brilliant story. Tell me, what was the connection for you with our church? How did you come to church? Tell us that.
Well, I sadly lost Jack in 2004 with cancer. I was devastated, bereft, grief-stricken. Couldn't tell you. I don't want to live how I felt then. And I didn't feel as though I got any support from the church. Then I got, in the spring, I got a little note through the letterbox saying, do you need any gardening doing? This to me was a miracle because, you know, people, I don't think realise how wonderful it is to be offered practical help when you're a widow on your own. So I said, unfortunately, no. I didn't need it at the moment. Put a letter through your letterbox, Neil, thanking them and everything. A few months later, got another note. Was I interested in an health course? Heard of Alpha, wondered about it, wanted to ask a few questions. So I thought, same church. Yeah, I think I'll go along to this. So I did. I was greeted very warmly by Pat Sloan at the door of the church and offered a cup of tea and a biscuit. And yeah, got to know people there, joined Mary's house group. And I don't know how they put up with me, this wailing, weeping female, you know, all over. But they were so loving and so caring. And Mary got me tickets for the theatre to go with them. That was something else, you know, that showed so much love. And then I said to her one evening, I said, what time does your service start, Mary? So she said, 11:30, which it was then. I thought, well, that'll do me. I'm not very good at getting up early. So I said, would you mind if I came? She said, oh no, you must, you know, do come. So I went. Now, one of the things I'd always done in my life was I loved to sing and perform and do all sorts of things. I hadn't been able to sing a note since Jack had died. Nothing came. And I came and listened to your lovely music and your musicians, and suddenly I could open my mouth and I could sing. And I just felt so much at ease there and so much wanting to be part of that. And that's how I came to be a member of Elim Church. My my cousin thought I'd been captured by a sect, and being a very devout Catholic, I said, no, Vera, no. They're absolutely wonderful. And a friend said to me, I'd told him that I'd left St. Luke's. I was now a member of Elim. And he said, oh, don't tell me you've lost your faith, Pat. I said, no, I haven't. I said, in fact, it's 10 times stronger than it was before. And I love it, absolutely love it. And
Tell me,
so here I am.
well, I remember those days really well, Pat, and yeah, just to see, yeah, that wonderful, um, that wonderful line you've just said about suddenly I could sing for the first time. That's quite touching.
Mm.
Um, Tell us about how, because you came from a Catholic background, so you had faith. You've long been part
Yeah,
of that
yeah.
tradition, but faith rekindled for you, didn't it? Tell us about what faith means to you now, or how it was rekindled. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it was rekindled because of the goodness and the kindness that I saw in everybody there, and I felt this warmth inside me. I'd never really read the Bible before. In the Catholic Church, it's not traditional to read much of the Bible. And I started to read the Bible, and everything meant so much more to me. And I used to think, how can there be all these wonderful people all together in this one church? You know, where have all these wonderful people come from? And I just felt surrounded by love,
Mm.
basically. Yeah.
That's a lovely thing to say. You've been in lockdown for, like the rest of us, for most of this year, and how's that been for you? Tell us a little bit about how that's been.
Well, I was quite lucky at the beginning because I'd gone down to visit my daughter Anne
Yes.
at the end of February, and my son Jonathan was coming to pick me up the following week. Well, not unfortunately for him, fortunately, he was called in to have a hip replacement that he'd been waiting for. I said, no, you mustn't miss that, John. You can't. So then it was arranged for James to come, but not till the week after. By the week after, we started lockdown and I couldn't leave Wales.
Of course, yeah.
So I stayed with her for 4 months. That's the most I've been with her since she was a baby. And I never thought that I would ever stay away from home for that long. But it was wonderful. She was so kind. Her partner Richard was so kind. They looked after me, waited on me, and it was wonderful.
Do you think Anne and Richard will think twice before asking you for a week next time?
I'm going again as soon as I can. No.
They're looking to see what the size of suitcase you're taking.
Yeah, hopefully the 3rd of December if everything goes
Okay,
well.
so as soon as the lockdown,
Yeah,
you're going to be
yes,
on the train.
yeah. So I did then think it's time I came home.
Yeah.
And I came home, and of course I met up with my friends, and Sue, a young woman that I met curling when I started doing curling. You see, everything moves on from one thing to another. I came to church, joined the church, got a notice about going to a knitting group at the Hype Methodist. At the Hype Methodist, met a lady called Margaret who went curling and said, would you like to come along to do curling? So I said, well, I'll give it a try. Went to that, through that, met Sue. And, it sort of all goes on from one to the other. Because I would always say to anybody who has lost somebody, do take every opportunity that you can to meet other people. It's so important, and
Because
it goes
when it
on
happens,
to
when you go through that grief, it can feel like the world's literally just come to an end for you.
absolutely,
You know,
absolutely,
and what you
yeah,
need is the help of other people around you
yes, yes, yeah,
who can do that work with you.
yes. So we go for a little walk in the park whenever we can. Um, we're our own bubble, if you know what I mean. She's on her own,
Yeah.
and we're in the park. We meet loads of people, and it's lovely.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So how could we pray for you in these days?
Um, pray for me to have a good night's sleep.
Yeah, you said before you're not sleeping well.
Yeah. No, no. Just pray that I keep strong.
Hmm.
Really, that I'm able to see my little baby in Glasgow, my fifth great grandchild. Not seen her yet, born in April. I have another one now in South Wales, a little boy called Lucas. Not seen him. Well, I hope to see him
Yeah.
when I go down. So just pray that I can then uh, start to rejuvenate and become the person uh, I was always, like to be social with
Yeah.
people, and that's what I want to be again.
Pat,
Yeah.
it's absolutely delightful just to hear the story, the things you've been involved with, the places you've been, the decision of shall we go home? Let's go home.
Yes.
And a whole new story
Mm.
began. And really glad on that day when and it's interesting because, um, you know, in a sense, your faith was rekindled because a group of people, a church, our church, mixed both practical help and spiritual responses to people who are searching really. And I think, but
Yes.
in the context of kind people, I think you're right. I think, lots of people in our church are just very kind and
Yes.
allowing one another to find faith even in the most difficult times.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that um, that all of that happened. I have to say, I was aware of the help being offered for gardens. To be honest, I would be the last person you'd want. So there were other people that we would have sent along.
Yes.
But but yeah, it was a good day. So thank you for being part of us and for now being part of that group of people who show love and care to others. We really appreciate you, Pat. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.